In today's class, I'm going to deliver about the concept that is LR parsing, which is most important parsing technique in bottom-up parser. And before learning this LR parsing, we already learned how to handle and how to prune the input strings. And then we already know and we already understand the concept like an shift reduce parser with the stack. And here this is the most important concept, that is an LR parsing, and now we are going to learn about how to construct the LR parsing by knowing the following steps. And initially we need to know what the LR parsing is. And here this is the most efficient method of bottom up parsing, and which can be used to parse the large classes of context free grammars. Make a note of this. For large classes of context free grammars, we are using this type of techniques to parse the input strings. And here this method is also called as an LR of K parsing. And here there is an abbreviation of what the LR of K parsing is. And the first L stands for scanning the input string or reading the input string from left to right. And the R is stands for the rightmost derivation in reverse. K is a number of input symbols where the K is omitted with 0 or 1. Sometimes in one type of an parsing technique we take 0, in some type of parsing techniques we take 1. So we are only using either 0 or 1, and always the K omits to either it may be an 0 or 1. Right. And here this is the definition of what the LR parsing is. This is the most important concept in an bottom up parsing, and the most powerful technique in bottom up parsing is an LR parsing. And this LR parsing in this LR parsing technique, what we are going to learn is, before knowing about the block structure of the LR parser, block structure of LR parsing, and before knowing about how the structure was represented for the LR parsing, we need to know what the properties of the LR parser is. And here we're having the question like this: why LR parsers? We already learned the LL parser, right? In top-down parsing, we already learned LL parsing there. Just by computing the first and follow function and then constructing the parsing table and also implementing the stack by using the parsing table, there we already learned in top down parsing the technique is an LL parser. And here in bottom up parser we are learning as an LR parser. Why LR parsers are? Why LR parsers? Here we are having an answer for that. See, all of you see the slide. For a grammar to be LR, when the grammar is to be LR, when if it is sufficient that a left to right shift reduce parser is to be implemented and also be able to recognize the handles of right sententional forms when they appear on the top of the stack. That means whatever the grammar that we are taking to implement this type of an LR parsing technique, that grammar, the type of an grammars are to be sufficient for implementing the handle pruning technique and also to be implemented for the shift reduce parsers. And in the shift reduce parser we implement the stack, right? So there itself we done the done and rightmost derivation. There itself we apply the rightmost derivation, because the working principle of the bottom up parsing itself, it is having that when we are constructing the parse trees from leaves to root, we need to apply the rightmost derivation. We need to apply the rightmost derivation in reverse, right? That means we are tracking the derivation from reverse order, in and reverse order. So if we satisfy all these, then we can call them as an LR parsers. Then we can say that the given grammars are the LR parsing grammars, right? And here we're having some limitations, or this we can call them as in properties of the LR parsers. Why LR parsers? For the question why the LR parsers, here we're having an answer for that question by answering with the properties of the LR parsers. And here we're having 4 properties. And what the first property is, the LR parsers can be constructed to recognize all programming languages, right? Programming language constructs for which context-free grammars can be written. This is one of the important property for the LR parsers. And here we are comparing the LR parser with the LL parser. Why? Because we are having two techniques, two parsing techniques in the syntax analyzers. So we should make the comparison between these two types of parsing techniques, that is an LL and the LR. And when we're comparing these two, comparing with the classes of grammars, see here, we're having a point like this. The class of grammar that can be parsed by the LR parser is a superset of class of grammar that can be parsed using the predictive parsing. What it means is, while when we compare with an LL, LR is the superset of the LL. LR parser is the superset of the LL parsing. And the next one is how this LR parser works. This LR parser works using a non-backtracking, because here we're not involving the backtrackings. We're not involving the backtrackings here. See, so it uses a non-backtracking shift reduce techniques, yet it is efficient one. And then finally, whatever the tree structure, corresponding tree structure that we are generating from the given grammar is an efficient output that we are generating, right? And the most important property of this LR is, all of you note down this, the LR parsers detects syntactical errors very efficiently. Detecting the syntactical errors very efficiently. This is the one of the most important property for the LR parsers. By considering these reasons, then we can say that these are the reasons to learn this LR parsers. Why to learn? What is the need of this learning the technique like an LR parsers, right? So these properties of the LR parsers are taken as are considering them as an reasons for learning the LR parsing technique, because here we're having the merits, no demerits are there for the LR parser. So having the merits, we are choosing this LR parsing technique, right? And what the next is, here we're having the block structure of the LR parser. All of you see the structure here. Both the structure for the LL and the LR are similar, but only one difference is there. At the parsing table, there we also have the parse table. There we're having terminals on the terminals in one row and non-terminals in one column. It is a 2D matrix representation. It is a 2D matrix representation, right? That is in LL parsing. But here we're having action and go to columns, action and go to columns, and we need to fill this action and go to columns. To fill this action and go to columns, we need to perform some actions here. We need to perform some actions here, and based on what and what, based on the input buffer and the stack, we're parsing some programs and we're performing some actions. We're having some basic operations in the shift reduce parsing, and we're using those operations here, and we're implementing the parsing technique, that is an LR parsing technique. And then we're finally constructing the table, right? And this, and how many data structures that the structure that the block diagram consisting of in an LR parser. Here there are mainly three data structures. One is an input buffer, one is a stack, and one is a parsing table. In between, what we are doing is, it is a table driven program that we are implementing here. Table driven program means from the parsing table we are implementing the input string parsing. We are parsing the input string, so we are calling that as it is a table driven parsing. And here the data structures are the input buffer, stack, and the parsing table. Finally we are getting an output, right? And I'm explaining each and individual data structure, each and individual component here. The first component, it is an from the structure of the LR parser, it consisting of an input buffer. For this input buffer is used for storing the input string. And here the second component is an stack for storing the grammar symbols and output. Both we are storing here, right? And a parsing table comprised of two parts. See here, it is comprised of two parts, namely one is an action and the other one is an go to. And here what it means is, there is one parsing program which is actually a driving program and reads the input symbol one at a time from the input buffer. And how the driving program works, and here we're having some following steps. By following those steps, the principle or the working principle of the driving program will be implemented. And what the step number one here, note down these steps. Note down the steps. The following steps are for the driving working principle of the driving program. And here, what the steps that are involved means, it initializes the stack with the start symbol and invokes the scanner here. We're invoking the scanner, that is a lexical analyzer, to get the next token. And it determines the state currently on the top of this stack. See here, what the top of the stack is X. And for example, here the pointer reading with an terminal place, right? And it is the current input symbol. It is a current input symbol, and the current state is an, now the current state is an Y here. It is pointing at an Y. So what it determines is the state currently on the top of the stack, and the input, that input terminal or whatever the input symbol from the input buffer. And it consults the parsing table for action of, here we're performing the action of the symbol in the input buffer along with the stack. That means what, the top of the stack along with the symbol on the input buffer. And we're performing the action like this, action of that whatever we're having on the top of the stack. Here we're having X, right? Action of X comma, and what the symbol here, it is in terminal, so plus, action of X comma plus, we're taking like that, and we're performing the action like that, and which can have one of the four values. Maybe we can shift it, or maybe we can reduce it, or maybe we can accept means successful parsing is done, and maybe we can show that it is an error indicating that syntactical errors, right? However, shifting means shifting with an state, reducing by the rule, and accepting just by making it successful. That means the parsing is done. And then finally indicating the error means syntactical error. Right, is it clear all of you? The brief description about the block diagram of LR parser. This is the block diagram of the LR parser. Right? And now, what are the techniques for creating parse table? Here, these are the techniques under the LR parsing. These are the techniques under the LR parsing. Means bottom-up parsing is divided into LR parsing technique, means divided into shift reduce parser and the LR parsing technique. And this LR parsing technique is subcategorized into these three: SLR, CLR, and LALR. SLR, CLR, and LALR. And what the SLR is, it is a simple LR parsing technique. And what we're constructing here, we're constructing this type of an LR parsing technique for small set of grammars, and easy to develop, simple to construct and easy to develop for small set of grammars. We are using SLR parsing table, SLR parsing techniques. And CLR is nothing but a canonical LR. Canonical LR means in between these three parsing techniques under the LR parsing, this is most powerful parser. This is most powerful parsing technique. That means it generates a large parse table and more difficult to develop. And here this type of parsing technique works for all types of context-free grammars. And by using this type of a technique, we may detect the position of the error. That means if you get any syntactical errors, then we can easily detect by such type of parsing techniques, right? And the next one is a look ahead LR, where it is widely used method. And here we are performing the optimization technique. Why? Because it optimizes the size of the parse table just by combining some states, And here this we can also call as an intermediate LR. Another name of this look ahead is an intermediate LR. Or the popular name for this LALR is an look ahead LR. And information, if you combine some states, by combining some states and performing the optimization just by decreasing the size of the parse table, optimize the size of the parse table, sometimes the information may get lost. So this type of look ahead LRs are widely used methods, and the CLR is a most powerful method, and this SLR is a simple method, simple LR parsing technique, right? Did you understand how many parsing techniques in the LR parser? 3 parsing techniques. And now we are going to learn about this simple LR parsing technique. By knowing what the simple LR is, for which type of grammars we are constructing the simple LRs, and whether it is an easy to develop or whether it is an complex to develop. Simple in the name itself, it is there, so it is easy to develop. And starts with the first parsing technique, SLR parsers. And here to construct the SLR parser, we are having 4 steps. We are having 4 steps. By following these 4 steps one by one, we are constructing the SLR parsing technique. What the first parsing is? What the first parsing step is? Formation of augmented grammar G dash for the given grammar G. Means here we are adding a new variable, that is a G dash, for the given grammar G. How we are adding means I will show in the example. Just see what the following steps are. And formation of augmented grammar. Initially, we need to define the augmented grammar from the given grammar. The indication or the representation is with an G dash for the given grammar G, right? And the second step is we need to construct LR of 0 collection of items. That means how we're constructing this LR of 0 collection of items means here we're finding the LR of 0 collection of items just by computing closure of I and goto function. These are the 2 functions we're computing here. Once recall the LL parsing technique, there we construct or compute the first and follow function. From the output table of the first and follow function, we represent the parsing table, right? And here also the body, the main role where we are having to construct is at closure of I and goto function. These are the 2 functions that we need to compute here. And after computing these 2 functions, then we can find out the first and follow of the each and every non-terminal. And after finding the first and follow, then finally we're constructing the parsing table, right? Here we're having 2 functions to be computed. Major role in the construction process is two functions that we are constructing. Initially, closure of I is very easy to define. To construct the closure of I function, it is very easy. And to construct the goto function, it takes some time. Why? Because if the grammar is in simple grammar, it is very easy to implement this goto function. If the grammar is in complex grammar, it takes some time to implement. That means it takes more time to implement. So computations of these 2 are the major part in the construction of the SLR parsers. Closure of I computation is very easy. Closure of I function computation is very easy while compared to goto function. Just we're defining what the items at the closure of I itself. And this is point number 2. And this is the major part of construction in the SLR parsing technique. And initially it is very easy to format what the augmented grammar is. And from the augmented grammar, it is very easy to define the closure of I and giving the name for the closure of I. And then the major step is constructing the goto functions. This is the most important thing that we need to compute. After computing the goto, then we need to find the first and follow for the non-terminals, because this concept we already learned in an LL parsing. And here we are not, while constructing the first and follow, we need not follow the steps of LL predictive parsing. Why? Because here it is a bottom-up parsing. We are learning bottom-up parsing. It is not a top-down parsing. So when we are finding the first and follow for the given grammar, so no need to eliminate the left recursion, no need to eliminate the left factorial, all these things. Just by the given, from the given grammar itself, directly you can write what the first and what the follow is. No need to check it out, because those are all the problems in the top-down parser, not for the bottom-up. So those are all not, the problems of top-down parser are not implemented in the bottom-up parser. Right, make a note of this. Just from whatever the grammar we are having in the form of G dash, just directly we are constructing the first and follow without considering or without eliminating anything, here. And finally, construction of the parsing table. These are the most 4 important steps to be followed here. 4 major steps we need to follow. In these 4 major steps, the most important step is an construction the goto function, construction of the goto function or computation of the goto function, right? Is it clear how many steps that we are having to construct the SLR parser? 4 steps. And now what the first step is? See, step number 1, formation of augmented grammar. It is very easy to format the augmented grammar. Nothing logic is there and nothing syntax is there. Just from the algorithm itself, we are following the rule that whatever the starting symbol we are having from the given grammar, just write down like this. Here my grammar is an E, right? In the given grammar, E tends to E plus T or T tends to T star F or F. This is the given grammar, right? And now how this is the given grammar G, from the given grammar G, right? And now I am formatting an augmented grammar for this one, for these rules. What the starting symbol of the given grammar? E. So directly the augmented grammar G dash is given by E dash tends to E. E dash tends to E. That means I am adding a new variable, introducing a new variable like an E dash. To make it as a live variable, what directly I am not giving any type of a rule here, because it should be an unambiguous grammar. It should not be an ambiguous grammar. Make a note of this. So here, what the purpose of using this, augmented grammar is, I will explain later. And see, the starting symbol of the given variable is an E. Directly write like this. E dash tends to E. If you are having A dash tends to A. If you are having S dash tends to S. That means just adding a new variable with the starting, from the starting variable of the given grammar, just by putting the complement here, just by putting the dash here. And to make it as a live variable, we need to define the rule, right? So just by defining with the starting symbol of the grammar G, we are writing the rule like this. We are writing the rule like this, because the augmented grammar is the variable of the starting symbol of the given grammar, right? So directly we are defining the augmented E dash with an starting symbol of the given grammar. For example, I'm having an A here. My starting symbol of the given grammar is A. A dash tends to A. Or S dash tends to S. Or it may be an B. B is the starting symbol of the given grammar. B dash tends to B. Simple to write the augmented grammars. Just whatever the starting symbol of the given grammar is there, just we are writing like this, just by taking the starting symbol with an complement and just defining the starting symbol of the grammar G with the grammar G dash, right? Is it clear how to write the augmented grammars? What is the purpose of writing like this? See, here we're having a statement, the augmented grammar G dash is G with a new start symbol S dash, right? And an additional production S dash tends to S. Why? Because S is the starting symbol from the given grammar. It is an example. So we're writing like this, S dash tends to S. But here, by considering this type of a grammar, our starting symbol is an E, right? So E dash tends to E is an additional production that we are adding here as an augmented grammar for the G dash. So step number 1 is this. This is an step number 1. Why to write this augmented grammars? What is the purpose of writing these augmented grammars? If you get the doubt like that, if you are having the doubt, what is the need of writing these augmented grammars? And what, all of you note down this answer. The purpose of this grammar is to indicate the acceptance of the input string. To indicate the acceptance of the input string means at the construction of the parsing table, after constructing the parsing table, we need to, after constructing the parsing table, we need to show that the constructed parsing table is an correct parsing table. How we are showing that? Just by parsing with an input string. When we parse the input string, finally we need to accept that input string. And after accepting that input string only, we can say that the given grammar is an LR grammar, LR of 0 or LR of 1 grammar. So we're concluding the statement like that. So the purpose of writing this augmented grammar is to indicate the acceptance of the input. Make a note of this. To indicate the acceptance of the input, we're formatting the augmented grammars like this. That means, that is when a parser is about to reduce, when we are reducing, when we are performing an operation like an reduce, at the place of reducing, we're having an production like this, S dash tends to S, S dash tends to S, it reaches to acceptance stage. When we read the production like S dash tends to S, then it reaches to an acceptance state. And here where we need, you all should know what is the purpose of writing or formatting this augmented grammar means, just to indicate the acceptance of the input. And it is clearly understood by you just when we construct the parsing table, and after constructing the parsing table we're taking an input string and parsing that input string, right? And at the time of parsing the input string, then you can clearly understand how this augmented grammar is useful. How this augmented, defining the augmented grammar is how it is useful. At that time, you can clearly understand. And it is the indication just for the acceptance of the input. Make a note of this. And the next, step number 1 is completed just by formation of the augmented grammar. Now, step number 2. What the step number 2 is? Items and the LR of zero automaton. Items and the LR of zero automaton. What it means is, once read down these points. Here we are having in questions like this. How does a shift reduce parser know when to shift and when to reduce? How does the parser know that symbol on the top of the stack is not a handle? And an LR parser makes shift reduce decisions by maintaining the states to keep track of all the operations. And what the states here, and what the states represents. States represents the set of items here. How we are getting the set of items, right? All these are all taken place at LR of zero automaton, right? That means items and the LR of zero items. And here we're having the questions like this, right? And we're representing the states while constructing the parsing technique. And what the state representation means? State represents the set of items. State represents the set of items. From where we're getting these items? Here we're having a question. From where we're getting these items? And when to shift and when to reduce the parser. How? In the shift reduce parser. How we're going to know all these? So for this, we're having an answer in the next slide. See, once all of you see here, the definition of LR of zero items and its related terms. What it means is, the LR of zero item for the grammar G is production rule in which symbol dot is inserted at some position in RHS of the rule. See here. It is a rule in the given grammar. It is a rule from the given grammar. What the rule is, A tends to XYZ is a rule. That means A yields, this A tends to XYZ is a rule. And this yields the 4 items like this. This yields the 4 items like this. Right? Just this is the introduction of the LR of zero items. We are not constructing here. We are not constructing with an example. Just by showing you these are the representations, in such a way we need to represent the LR of zero items. Just making you to understand this is the representation. This is the way of representing the LR of zero items. It's not an overall construction process. Just here we need to understand what the LR of zero items is. See here, what it means is, the dot is inserted. Where the dot is inserted? At some position in the RHS. At some position means initially it should inserted at the starting of the RHS. At the starting of the RHS. When it is moves forward, when it moves forward, when I am implementing the goto function, when I am implementing the goto function, that means when I am computing the goto function, then this dot moves forward like this. Then this dot moves forward by reading one by one variable like this, right? And here if we are having in production like this, A tends to epsilon, then what it generates an only item like A tends to dot. A tends to dot or A tends to epsilon, the meaning of this both, that is a nullable item, nullable production rule. The meaning of these both are same. And next, an item indicates how much of production we have seen at a given point in the parsing process. And this is about an introduction of what the LR of zero item and its related representations. And here we are not constructing the overall grammar here, just I'm showing the representations like this. Means in the LR of 0 items, for each and every production rule we need to place, or we need to insert an dot symbol, and here the dot symbol is inserted at the starting of the RHS of the production rule in the grammar, right? And next, see how it moves forward. Just I am defining each and every rule. Rule in the sense, see here in the last slide, for this rule, for the production like A tends to XYZ, it yields the 4 items. Here I defined that it yields and 4 items. What the 4 items are here? See, the item A tends to dot XYZ. Initially it is at the starting of the right hand side. Initially, that means after tends to, we should place and dot. Then by performing the goto function, by computing the goto function, then this dot moves forward like this. Then this dot moves forward like this. And just I'm defining each and every rule here. If the item is like this, A tends to dot XYZ, what the indication of this is? To see a string derivable from XYZ next on the input. And if it is an X dot YZ, that means here I perform an goto function, some item with the X, then this dot moves forward. That means now it is on dot Y. What it indicates means, just on that input a string derivable from X, and we hope the next to see a string derivable from YZ. And now it is Y dot Z. That means here I compute and goto function with an item comma Y. Then when I compute and goto function with an item comma Y, then what will happen means the before dot, the dot before the Y should move forward. That means it becomes like an after Y. The dot should appear at after Y. Now it is before on Y, right? And after computing the goto, then it becomes like this. And what it indicates that on the input a string derivable from XY, and that we hope the next to see a string derivable from Z. That finally XYZ, and here I implement goto function, goto of some item with Z. Why? Because dot after what I'm having, the symbol it is in Z. Now I am performing the goto function with item comma Z. What it means is the dot that was inserted before Z, after performing an goto function, it should move forward. That means now it should appear, it should indicate it after Z. It is now before implementing the goto function, it is before, the dot inserted is at before Z, and after goto function, now it is after Z. The dot indicates it after Z. And here what it means is the body XYZ, and that it may be time to reduce XYZ to A. What it means is here what we are doing, the right hand side of the variables are replaced to it by its corresponding left hand side, right? The right hand side of the production rule is replaced by its corresponding left hand side. So this right hand side is replaced. We are reducing this by replacing with its corresponding variable A, right? For this, for the working principle of the bottom up parsing, we are just computing such LR of 0 items. We are constructing such LR of 0 items just by computing two functions. One is an closure function and the another one is an goto function. And see here we are having the other points for this. Collection of set of LR of items can be called as a canonical LR of 0 collection. That means set of canonical construction set of, that means canonical set of items. We can call it as a canonical set of items. That means the collection of set of LR of 0 items can be called as a canonical set of items, or we can also call it as canonical LR of 0 collection. And here it provides the basis for constructing an DFA that is used to make the parsing decisions. Here at last we need to draw the NFA and DFA also. So for constructing the finite automators, this is the basic information. That was by this information by providing the basic information from the LR canonical set of items, we are constructing these finite automatons. It may be an NDFA or it may be an DFA, right? And this automaton is called as an LR of 0 automaton, and here the each state of the LR of 0 automaton represents a set of items in the canonical LR of 0 collection. And this is the brief description about the second point in the following, second step in the following steps. That means how to construct the SLR parsing. What the steps that are there? Only 4 steps. The first one is an formation of an augmented grammar. In the last slide, I explained how to format the augmented grammar from the given grammar G. And here, I'm making you to understand how to construct the LR of 0 items. And this is the basic introduction of how to construct the LR of 0 items just by seeing some points and by understanding those. And now with an example, I'll clearly make you to understand. See, all of you make a note of this grammar. Consider the given grammar. Consider the given grammar. And how step number 1 is, this is G. How we are defining the grammar? Defining the grammar with G. G. And now step number 1, formation of augmented grammar. Write down like that, formation of augmented grammar. What is the starting symbol of the given grammar? E, right? And how we are formatting the augmented grammar? Just by additional production rule, like E dash tends to E. E dash tends to E. And therefore, the modified grammar G dash is, write down all these rules again. E dash tends to E, E tends to E plus T or T tends to T star F or F tends to open parenthesis, E closed parenthesis, F tends to ID, right? And this is the modified grammar G dash. From the grammar G, after writing an augmented grammar, that means after formatting the augmented grammar for the grammar G, now this grammar becomes an G dash. That means the modified grammar G dash. Now put a heading G dash and write down all these rules. All these rules along with the augmented grammar. E dash tends to E, E tends to E plus T or T tends to T star F or F tends to open parenthesis, E closed parenthesis or ID. Right? With this, step number 1 is completed. Now, what the step number 2 is? And before computing the goto function, we need to do 2 things. What the first thing is, we need to define the closure of I. And then we need to give the name, item name of that particular closure. What it means is, now next step number 2, put a heading step number 2. There, closure of I. Put a heading closure of I like this. Closure of I, closure of capital I. Put a heading like this. Now, in closure of I, again write down all these rules. Whatever we're having, whatever we defined in the G dash, whatever the grammar we're having, whatever the production rules that we're having in the G dash, again write all those rules. And here at the definition of the closure of I function, what we are doing here is just we are inserting the dot at the starting of the right hand side production rules for each and every production. We are inserting the dot where we are inserting after tends to in each and every rule. On the right hand side, the first appearing symbol should be an dot. Make a note. On the right hand side, the first appearing symbol should be an dot. So you all should make a note there. Dot is inserted at the starting of the right hand side rule. At the starting of the right hand side rule in the production number 1. At the starting of the right hand side rule in the production number 2. In the starting of the right hand side in the production number 3. In the starting of the right hand side in the production number 4. Starting of the right hand side, we are inserting this dot starting of the right hand side in the production number 5. And starting of the right hand side in the production number 6. Starting of the right hand side in the production number 7. Right? Is it clear? And just this is nothing but a closure of I. This is nothing but a computation of closure of I. Computation of closure of I. With this we compute closure of I. Now we should give the name for this closure of I, because the next step is we need to compute the goto function. To compute the goto function, we need to know what the, from which item we are calling, we're calling the symbols, from which item we are calling the symbols. That means if you call the symbol, what it means is, then whatever the symbol that you called by using the goto function, the dot is inserted before that symbol initially, and after performing the goto function, that dot should move forward. After performing the goto function, the dot should move forward to that symbol, right? Is it clear now? So for that purpose what we are doing here is we are giving the name of this closure. We are giving the name of this closure with an I. Why? Because closure of I, no, I represents an items. I represents an item. So I am naming with all the set of these production rules, all the set of this closure of I with an I naught, with an I naught, starting with the I naught, because I'm starts my sequence of item with an 0 sequence. In then later on these items becomes as an states. I'm considering these items as an state. So my state representation is from this set of items. My state representation is from the set of items. For example, we're having this type of a grammar, and after implementing this type of a grammar, if I get I0 to I9 states, then I9 items, then these I0 to I9 items are represented as an states when I am drawing the or finite automata. When I am drawing the finite automata, it may be an NFA or DFA. These I0 to I9 items, I am considering them as an states. I am representing in the finite state machine with these I0, I1, I2, I3 and so on. That means I am taking those as an states there. I am considering those items as an states. So for representing the states, we are defining the name of the items. We are giving the name of the items just with an I along with the sequence number 0, 1, 2, 3. And initially this closure of I, whatever I am having under the closure of I, that means these are all the collection of rules, all the collection of rules, right? And this collection of set can be named with an I naught. The collection of set can be named with an I naught. This is an LR of 0. Constructing an LR of 0 now. I am constructing an LR of 0 by computing the closure of I function and the goto function. Now I am not constructing the goto function, just I am knowing how to construct the closure of I function. And how to construct the closure of I function? Just by putting an heading closure of I and writing whatever the rules that we are having in the G dash. G dash is a modified grammar, and placing or inserting the dot at the right hand side of each and every rule. Placing or inserting the dot at the right hand side of each and every rule. Then we complete the computation of the closure of I. And after completing the dot insertion process, then what you need to do is, what the next step is, you need to give the name of for this. You need to give the item name for this. Why? Because why we are giving the names? Why we are giving the item names? We are constructing the closure for the items. So I is an item here. So with the sequence number, we are giving the item names. And these items are represented as an states when we are representing the finite automata. That means it may be an DFA or NDFA. Right? Is it clear? In this class, I am explaining only two steps. One, how to format the augmented grammar, and two, how to compute the closure of I, and how to state the I0 for this closure of I, and how to state the I0 for this closure of I. Why? Because here we are having the collection of set and collection of set of rules, and we are naming this set with some item number I0. Is it clear? Now after this, I need to construct the goto function. Now from the I0 itself, I am taking the symbols from the I0 itself. After completion of the I0, then I will go for the another new item I1. After completion of the I1, that means here I done and goto function from the I0. Whatever the new rules I am getting, just I am naming
the new rules with the new sequence number. Already I0 is completed, where I0 consisting of this set. Now what the next new item is I1, and what the next new item is I2. When we are getting this I1 and I2, after computing the goto function along with the item and the symbol, we are getting the next and next items, right? So this process is nothing but an computation of closure and goto function. Computation of closure function and the goto function. Up to now, what I make you to understand is how to write the augmented grammar and how to write the closure function, closure of I, and how we are giving the sequence number with an item symbol I. How we are giving, or we are representing an sequence number with an item I. Right? Is it clear up to now? In the next class, I am making you. I will deliver how to construct the goto function. Then I will make you to understand how to construct the goto function, and after constructing the goto function, the total LR of 0 item construction process is completed. That means step number 2 will be completed. Step number 2 will be completed. Half of the step number 2 is completed now. Still we are having to construct or compute the goto function, right? And after completing the goto function computation, then we'll find out the first and follow for the non-terminals, and then finally we'll we'll represent the parsing table. We'll construct the parsing table basing on these goto function outputs, basing on these goto function computations, and then we will draw the finite automata. It may be an NFA or it may be an DFA, whatever it may be. And to show that the whatever the grammar we take, we consider as an context-free grammar, whatever the context-free grammar we considered here, and by taking the context-free grammar, we implement all these steps, and finally we draw the, we construct the parsing table, and finally we represent the finite automata. Then how we will know that whether the given, whether the considered grammar is an LR grammar or not. And for showing that it is an LR grammar, we need to show the acceptance just by taking the input string, right? What it means is we are implementing with an stack here. We are implementing with an stack. Why? Because stack is one of the data structure. So implementation with the stack, what we are doing here is we are parsing the input string by using the LR parsing table. And after completion of the parsing by taking the input string, then when we show that it is an acceptable input string, then finally the overall construction process is completed just by concluding that the given grammar is an LR of 0 grammar. These are all the things from the half of the step number 2 is completed up to now. The remaining step number 2 and the remaining portion steps that we are having in the construction, right? And all those are all I will explain in further and further classes. In the next class, I will complete this topic. And in the next class, it is the most important class because these two are very easy. These two constructions are very easy. One is formatting and augmented is very easy. And just by inserting a dot at the right hand side of the rule is very easy, and naming it is in closure of I, and just giving a name like an I0. It is very easy. And construction of an goto function is very complex in the sense not much, such a difficult thing. We need to concentrate more when we're constructing the goto function. So in the next class, I will explain how to construct the goto function, and then I will show the construction of the parsing table based on this closure function and the goto function.